What have the last couple of days been like for you since you found out you were going to be a Bengal?
I'm sure you could imagine a little bit chaotic, head spinning a little bit, but just trying to come in here and have an open mind and figure out what we got going on. So,
how much of what you are going to do offensively, what Zach wants to do offensively, do you think you got in this week for yourself?
how much of our game plan do I feel comfortable with? I think he's done a good job of kind of being able to figure out what direction to go, and I feel like I've done a good job. I mean, it's a little bit different to call because some of the terminology is a little bit different. I think that's the biggest issue is just kind of making sure I get in and out of the huddle the way I want to. I think once I break the huddle, I feel pretty comfortable. It's just a matter of getting in and out of the huddle and just continuing over the next couple of days to make sure I can get even better at that.
What was your initial reaction on Tuesday?
Crazy business.
Yeah.
You have to be ready for anything. That's kind of what it was. Definitely didn't have this on my list of things that were going to happen. So, but hey, that's this league, and I'm a player. I think most players would say the same thing. I mean, I like to play football, and if that's in Cincinnati right now, then I'm all for it.
You get to play. You obviously get to throw it to Jamar, T, and the rest of the line. It's just thoughts on those guys.
Yeah, well, obviously, I mean, everybody, can see what they've done throughout their careers and the kind of players they are. I think it's exciting for anybody to kind of go out and see them play. So when you're the guy that gets to throw to them, it's just another level.
Whether it's the game plan, logistics, new faces, what's the biggest challenge this week?
Well, the biggest challenge is probably still just the Green Bay Packers, and the team that they have. They're a confident team that plays good football. And, I think all the other stuff, you can use as an excuse, but we still have to go play a football game on Sunday, and they're the ones that stand in front of us.
How much is the fact that you played them only a couple of weeks ago and they've only got one more game on tape since then?
Yeah.
How much does that help?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a little bit helpful. The fact that you've been able to watch them on film and kind of see what they do, and then actually go out and play against them, and kind of see how physical they are, and all that stuff. I still think, just like any other football game, though, it's about kind of focusing on ourselves and what we can do best.
Quarterbacks that have been around a long time, like you have, like to use the expression, I know all the answers, or I know most of the answers. How does that help you coming into a situation like this when you see so many things but have to process them very quickly?
I think in this kind of environment and in this situation particularly, I think honestly I can get in trouble kind of thinking I know everything. I think the best way for me to do it is just keep it simple. I think a lot of the times when you've played a lot of ball and when you've been around a lot of ball, you can get to the point where you overcomplicate things and you're just making things harder on yourself. So honestly, I think my experience in this regard is going to help me in the sense that I don't have all the answers. Just keep it simple. Go play football, and I think that's the best way to kind of make sure that we play consistently, stay ahead of the chains, and do all those things.
What was the car ride down like with Zach kind of on that phone call just as you were going down there? What was that experience?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I was tired. I would have drove down myself, but they were nice enough to kind of take us down with me, and Zach got on the phone with me a little bit, just kind of going over some of the basic things that they had kind of had in for this week. And then honestly, I kind of like crashed a little bit, like with my wife next to me, and just got a little bit of rest. We just got back from London, and like waking up is easy, but like at 8 o'clock, I was like hitting a wall. So it was nice to be able to just kind of get a little bit of rest on the drive after talking to him for a little while.
Did you and your wife have a moment where you looked at each other like, what, is this actually happening?
I think the last couple of weeks we've had those moments, A lot of the times when you're going through things as a player, you just adapt. You go with it. I think with everything in life, when things happen to you, you just like, all right, how do we go forward? What's the next step? And it doesn't really hit you too hard. But the people that care about you, they almost wear it on their sleeve, all these different emotions more than you do. And I think that's how it's been over the last couple weeks. So honestly, like when this ended up happening, I think there was a little bit of excitement from her, and yeah, we looked at each other and were like, well, what the hell? But you could see, I think it was ultimately excitement on, what the future holds.
Joe, it's very early in the season still, week 6. Do you feel like you're stepping into a situation where you can be a guy that can help this team stay in the playoff picture, in that playoff conversation?
I sure hope so. That's what I play for, is to win football games and help everybody be at their best. And I hope I can come in here and give these guys my best, and elevate us as much as I possibly can, and see if we can win a few football games.
Before you get traded, it's another to find out right away that you're starting 5 days from that. What's that like? What's the first thing that pops in your head?
Yeah, you honestly just have, like I said, it goes back to just, I think my personality probably ends up helping me here, but you just kind of have to go with it and embrace whatever it is and meet it head on, and then also, like when you're in these situations, it's a good reminder of the fact that we get to play a game for a living, and try not. It makes it almost a little bit easier to not make it bigger than it actually is. So.
18 years in, Super Bowl MVP, plenty of money in the bank, young family. Why are you still doing this at 40?
It's always I get that question so much, especially before this season. But I just feel like I have like a lot to offer to a football team. I feel like I've put in a lot of work my whole life to get to this point, in just in terms of playing in the NFL in general. And I hopefully will have a long life when I'm done, but you only get a chance to play in the NFL once. And I feel like I've worked really hard, like I said, to be a guy that gets to play in the NFL, and I don't want to take that for granted. I still feel like I can play the game at a high level, and I want to be able to look at myself in the mirror when I'm 50 years old and be able to say that I gave it everything I had. So.
I spoke to somebody that's dealt with you often over the years. He said it was his impression you love the game more than ever now. Is that true?
I think there's things that happen. I don't know. I don't know if it's true or not, because it's I honestly never really think about it as like a love for the game and this and that. Like it's part of who I am, and I think as you grow up and become more mature, and you have certain things happen in your life, there are certain things about doing this and getting to show up into that locker room every day, with a group of guys, a group of young guys. As you grow up, you just learn how to not take it for granted as much and realize that, like, how cool the situation you're in. So,
what's the learning curve like on a short week, a new offense? Is it simple to start, or is it trial by fire?
Yeah, you ultimately, it's funny. Like you look at a play call written out, and you're like, okay, I can kind of wrap my head around that. And then you see the picture, and you're like, okay, now I got it. And then you go out in the walkthrough, and he spits it out to you, and you have to repeat it, and you're like, oh man, I thought I had it, but that seems hard to repeat. So you kind of, or you're figuring it out at that point, and then you got to practice, and you're like, okay, yeah, I felt pretty good calling it there. So ultimately, you think you can kind of have it by looking at it, but you have to go out there and do it. So I would say trial by fire is ultimately how you end up learning. You have to go out there and call it and visualize it. And it's one thing to see the call written out, another thing to see the picture, another thing to go out there and actually say it and do it. So.
What was your conversation brief as it was with Mike Brown yesterday before practice?
Oh, I mean, just kind of like, he was like, oh, you seem like a familiar face just because we've played so many games, against each other. I mean, I'm hitting up everybody in the division at this point. So yeah, it was just kind of getting to know him. It's pretty cool that, he's out there every day on his golf cart watching practice. And if anybody loves football, I'm sure you could talk to him about the love of the game, because he's one of those guys that seems like that.
Have you ever played with two guys like Jason Higgins? What's your?
Well, I don't want to get into comparing guys I've played with. I mean, I've gotten I've been fortunate to play with some good players and some good teams. And I haven't gotten a chance to play with these guys yet, but man, they're exciting to watch. And I can put myself in like my kids' shoes, for instance. Like, I remember when I was a kid, like watching wide receivers was always the coolest thing. Quarterbacks, their kind of job is to get the ball to the guy, but like the guys doing all the cool things are like the guys that have the ball in their hands, the running backs, the wide receivers. I've gotten a chance to play with some good wide receivers and just be a part of good teams, and I'm excited to be with these guys as well.
You don't want to give us a ranking of every skill.
Yeah, that's right.
Back in 23, you hopped in, midstream with Cleveland. You and Amari, like, immediately had this connection. Do you look back on that in terms of the key to connecting with a top receiver quickly in that type of situation that you can draw on here?
You can't overthink it. I know everything. You like to talk about all that, and the chemistry and everything, but those guys are two of the best in the world at what they do. If you can't throw to them and get on the same page as them, then you're in trouble.
How do you feel like you played the first month of the season?
Oh yeah, I did not play as well as I wanted to, and feel like I'm capable of. So excited about the opportunity to kind of go out there and do that.
What do you feel like you wanted to do better?
Well, the biggest thing is like, I didn't take care of the ball as well as I wanted to. A couple unfortunate interceptions turn into other ones that, you did make mistakes on, and, you just kind of get stuck in that. And that's probably the thing that stands out. But I think this is a great opportunity to just kind of get back out there and prove the opposite.
Can you walk us through your process when you said like the most important thing for you is going to be learning the language and maybe the difference in what some things are called here compared to what you're used to? Do you use like flashcards or do you just read, or is it iPad? Like, what do you do to make sure that you can memorize what you need?
Read it, say it, look at it, have somebody say it to me, repeat it. Just that. There is familiarity. There is like, it's not like everything's brand new. There are certain things that are recognizable about it. And then I feel like I have a good picture of it all in my head. So once I do say it and tell everybody what to do, I do feel like I have a good picture of it. But like communicating that is very important. So yeah, it's just a process of that, looking at it, saying it, repeating it. I've never had my wife kind of read stuff out to me, but the other night, sitting in the hotel, I did have her, read, some of the base game plan to me and have me repeat it back to her. She didn't do bad because there is a rhythm. There's a rhythm not only to like saying the play in the huddle, but there is a rhythm to giving someone the play. Like as Zach would give me the play, there's a rhythm to how you say things, and it's not like she knows the difference between a formation, a shift, a motion, and where the actual play starts. So like, I didn't think she'd have a good enough rhythm to it, but it actually worked out decent.
Talk about the rhythm in the huddle. Is there like an art to that in the way that you relay the play call and conduct the huddle?
I think it is important, obviously, how you run a huddle, but it shouldn't be like the hardest thing in the world. And then especially today, like I think there's just a lot of wristbands and stuff like that. So, when I first started using a wristband, like honestly, there's a piece of it that was harder because instead of like saying it and picturing it as you're saying it, you're just reading words. And then you kind of have to go back and think, what did I just say? But you get used to doing that too. So it's not the hardest thing in the world to be somebody that gets a good rhythm and communicates it well, but there is a little bit of work to be done in order to get there.
Have you
spoken to Joe
Before you got
Burrow?
traded, did you feel like you still had before you got traded, did you feel like you were still good enough to be a starter in the league?
Of course, yeah. I mean, if I didn't feel that way, then I wouldn't be doing it.
Have you spoken to Joe Burrow, and can he be a resource for you to help?
Yeah, I have spoken to Joe, and of course he can. Yeah, I mean, he can definitely help. Just little things that he's kind of done or how he's seen this play or that play, it can kind of help speed up your process a little bit and help you relate it to something that you've done in the past.
Coach Taylor said on Wednesday.
Have your kids talked about the trade to you at all? Or?
Just a little bit. They're back at home, and they seem to be excited, you know, especially because of the two guys that you were talking about. But you know, kids, I mean, they don't really have too much time for you when you're talking to them over the phone. So, you know, they've definitely seemed excited. But I'll find out a little bit more when I get to see them.
Coach Taylor said on Wednesday they traded for you because of how well you fit the offense. In what ways does this offense fit you?
Well, I'm still just trying to figure it all out. So if he feels that way, then I feel great about it. You know, I pride myself on being able to come in and run the offense the way that you see it in your head, and then obviously, you know, you grow from there together. But I think you guys know where he comes from and the type of system that, you know, he comes from and the background of his, and I think that I've been with some of the guys that are kind of involved in that tree and can like the general idea of what they do. So
You've been on both sides of this, but what do you say to Jake, and how is that?
yeah. I mean, you talk, and I don't think you ever like specifically bring that up, but you do talk about it. Listen, I mean, it's disappointing. I'm sure he's super disappointed. I mean, I was there 2 weeks ago. You know, I think when you play in this league, you always want to be the guy that's out there and playing it, and you know, the guy behind the center. But also you have to keep your head on your shoulders, right? Because opportunities could come up whenever. To Jake's credit, like, you know, he's disappointed and is having a tough week, but I think he's done an awesome job, kind of, you know, being there for me in this process of kind of you know, preparing for this game, and I think he's been super helpful in the meeting rooms, and then even outside of the meeting rooms, just kind of somebody to talk to and ask questions. So he's been great.
Have you ever been in a situation like this?
No, I mean, come on. No, this is super unique.
I'm curious because are you curious to see how you respond on such short preparation? You get on the field Sunday and it's go time.
Yeah, I think I don't think I'm curious to see how I'll respond. I think part of that response is already happening. I think I'm going to be able to look back at it and feel like I handled it well. But going out there and playing the game is a different thing. Like, you got to go out there and you got to play a good game and be consistent. And I'm not worried about how I'm going to handle the situation. I'm not worried about that much. I just want to go out there and keep it simple and play the best game I can.
Joe, you have a lot of experience playing in the National Football League. You played with quite a few teams, had quite a few offenses that you've had to, you know, study and learn. As you're studying and learning this Bengals offense, does it remind you of anything that you've you know, utilized and employed in the past?
Well, I mean, not necessarily like formationally, but like some of the concepts are the same from what I just came from, you know, and even if they're not the same, they're almost called the same thing, or they're at least ran the exact same way. So I think in terms of that, it is very similar to the offense that I've been in Cleveland for, you know, a little bit of the past 3 years. You go back to when I was in New York with the Jets, and Mike LaFleur was calling the games. It's similar to that too. So, all right.